Welcome to the Someday Readings channel. I am your host, the Someday Reader, and we are continuing in our journey to build a better stack of books. And that journey takes us to Japan. And our very first non-fiction biography, it's called Confessions of a Yakuza by Junichi Saga, who was a doctor that had a patient come in who turned out to be a retired Yakuza boss. And he recorded the gentleman's life story from about his career as a member of the Yakuza. Now, the gentleman in question, we're going to call him Edgy. Edgy was the son of a general store owner, very successful man, who also happened to own a home, which he rented out to the local judge, one of the local judges, who kept his mistress there. And one of Edgy's jobs was to go and collect the money for the rent. And in doing so, he struck up a relationship with the judge's mistress. And eventually, the judge is promoted, and he moves to Tokyo, and he takes his mistress with him. Edgy, being a teenager, convinces his dad, hey, it's time that I make my own way in the world and learn a trade and become, independent and all that good stuff. So, because his intention is to go to Tokyo to find this judge's mistress and hook back up with her. So his dad agrees and sends him to work with his uncle at his uncle's coal firm. And it is at his uncle's coal firm where his life really just takes a complete detour from anything resembling normality. He becomes the lookout for the laborers during their afternoon break. They play games of chance. They gamble, and they run gambling games in the middle of the coal yard, and which is not legal. It's highly illegal. Gambling is severely frowned upon by the authorities. And his job is to be the lookout. He stands on top of a pile of coal, and if he sees the cops coming, he's supposed to throw a chunk of coal into the middle of the game so that everybody knows, hey, the cops are coming. Well, he graduates from being a lookout for these games. He gets a job as a working on what's called a night boat. And a night boat is kind of a 1920s Tokyo criminal Uber system. You would get on a night boat, and it would take you through the waterways of Tokyo to wherever you needed to go, and you would avoid the police, because the police at this time, in order to control the populace, they have police stations or substations at every bridge. So you can't cross a bridge without walking past a cop. And if a cop sees you at 2 o'clock in the morning, he's going to stop and question you. He's going to want to know what you're up to. And if you are someone who's engaged in criminal activities, you don't want to talk to the police if you can avoid it. So that is what these night boats do. They allow people to move around the city without having to deal with the authorities. Well, he goes from that to being recruited by a gang of pickpockets. Guy who runs a pickpocketing gang tries to recruit him, and he says, can I think about it? And he thinks about it, and he gets a better offer to become a Yakuza, to join a Yakuza family. And at this point in time, Yakuzas are basically, they are gamblers. That's what they do. They run games of chance. And in fact, he points out in this that at this point in time, which is the 1920s, that a Yakuza who engages in other means, uh, other forms of criminal activity, so to speak, to earn money is frowned upon and looked down upon by his fellow Yakuzas, because obviously you're not very good at running your games, at being a Yakuza, if you have to, engage in theft, or anything of that nature. I mean, you're not a Yakuza anymore. It's kind of their thinking. And one of the things, and this is interesting thing. There's a lot of things in here that about Japanese culture and history, and one of the things that's great about this is you get to hear about the world that this man inhabited from a first person perspective. You get to hear about how the world was when he was in it, and that to me is fascinating, especially in regards to history is concerned. It's a living history type thing, and I've always enjoyed that. And but let me get back to it. The Yakuza, and one of the things about the Yakuza that he points out is the Yakuza who they run the game. Yes, they're called professional gamblers, but it should really be they're the game manager. They're the bookie. They take the bets and they make their money by taking a percentage of all of the bets, a commission. And one of the things about the Yakuza is they make it a point that if someone is losing, if someone's having a really bad night, they will pull them aside, give them back a percentage of their losings, and basically tell them, why don't you go on, come back another night when you got a little bit more, when Dame Fortune is smiling on you. Hey, someday, kitty, how you doing? And which I think that's an interesting way of doing business. I mean, you want people to keep coming back, because if you are a Yakuza who gains a reputation for, busting people out, people aren't going to want to come to your game. So it's kind of, I guess you would call it trying to build brand loyalty type of thing. Very, very interesting little things. There's all kinds of little tidbits like that in here. And so he joins a Yakuza family, and he's low man, he's the low man in the group. He does, all the menial chores and everything, and he is responsible for doing all the grocery shopping and all that kind of stuff. And he eventually graduates up to the point where he's allowed to assist in running a game. And he's assisting in running this game, and the police raid the game because gambling is severely frowned upon. I think I've pointed that out by the authorities. And so the police make their raid. They're going in there. They're getting ready to arrest everybody, and he turns out the lights right in the middle of the raid, so that all of the people that are there in the establishment are able to flee and get away from the cops. Well, the next day, the police commander goes to his boss's house and basically says, look, what happened last night? What is going on? I mean, somebody's got to pay for this because we look like a bunch of jerks. And, we can't have this. We know what you're doing all the time. We can raid every game that you've got. We can do it every night and put you out of business. We're just, all we're trying to do is make our quota, man. Come on. And somebody's got to go and pull this nonsense on us. And so the boss says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. got some people, they don't know how it works. And so the guy who was really running the game offers, of course, yes, I'll go to the police. I'll tell them I was the one running the game, and I'll take the lick for it. I'll take the hit. But Edgy, being young and confident and everything else, and wanting to, eager to please and everything, he says, "No, let me do it. I caused the problem. Let me go." So he goes to the police and he tells the police, "I was the one running the game," and he's only like a kid. I mean, he's not even 20 years old yet. And the cops take this as a personal insult. I mean, it's like, there's no way you were the guy running that game last night. You're trying to make us look like idiots. Well, so they start, of course, they start beating him and everything to get a confession out of him, which he's already confessed, but to get him to give up the guy who was really running it. And he does not give the guy up. He says, he maintains, "I'm the person who was running the game." So the cops eventually, they give up, and they got a grudging respect for him, and they turn him over to the court. Court sentences him to 6 months in jail, and he does his 6 months. And the day before he gets out of jail, the warden calls him to the office and says, "Look, you need to have all your stuff ready to go at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you need to be ready to go 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, because I don't want you here. I don't want you leaving this prison, and I don't want everybody in the neighborhood seeing what's going to happen." And he's like, what's going to happen? And so he gets out of prison the next day. They kick him out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and his entire Yakuza family is there. And they're out there. They've got, bonfire, braziers burning and everything. They strip him out of his prison clothes. They put him into a brand new silk kimono, and they shove money in his pockets. Here's all your back pay, kid. You took your first pinch like a man. You didn't give anybody up, kind of thing. Kind of like the scene from Goodfellas, where Henry Hill gets arrested, and then he doesn't say anything. I mean, basically it's the same thing. And so he has he's become, his stock in the company has gone way, way up. Well, unfortunately, he ends up with a little bit of a detour, because he's forced into the army, and he continues his criminal ways in the army. This is okay. I'm going to stop there. This is a definite recommend. If you are a fan of Japanese culture and history, this is Confessions of a Yakuza. This is a definite get. If you are like me and you're interested in crime and criminality and organized crime and that type of thing, this is definitely a get, because he covers both the pre-war and post-war Yakuza. When the Yakuza, after the World War II, when it became more of the mafia type thing, where it was getting into construction, and all that kind of stuff. And it's a very interesting book. And if you're just a fan of history in general, this is a very good book. It's a good first-person view of life in imperial and post-war Japan. And where this should go in your stack, I would put this towards the top, because this is, as I said, this is a great read. There's all kinds of little bits of information that are extremely fascinating, and you won't go wrong with this one. All right, please like, share, and subscribe. And I have been the Someday Reader, and thank you for joining me.